Welcome to lesson number 1, in which we're going to ask ourselves, what is YAB? Well, you might say that's easy, it's a computer language. But there's more to that. There's a little bit of history. This won't take long, but it's a little bit of background that I want to give you. Now, I'm recording this on the 6th of May, 2024. And almost exactly 60 years ago, on the 1st of May, 1964, two guys at Dartmouth College called John G. Kemeny and Thomas E. Kurtz ran the first program in their brand new computer language, which they called BASIC. Now, BASIC is an acronym, as usual in the computer world, and it stands for Beginner's All-Purpose Symbolic Instruction Code. Now, I strongly suspect that they actually wanted to call it BASIC, and they figured out what it stood for afterwards, but I guess we'll never know. So after 1964, this thing caught on like wildfire, right? It was adapted for the very first personal computer, the Altair, and then Microsoft picked it up and made a version for the IBM PC. And then there was a version for Apple, and if you're old like me, then you'll remember every 8-bit computer seemed to boot directly into BASIC. So my first computer was a Sinclair ZX Spectrum, and it booted directly into Spectrum BASIC. So this, it was a big thing. And if you were computing in those days, the first thing you learned was BASIC. That's no longer true. Nowadays, it seems the first thing the kids learn is Minecraft. But if you wanted programs in those days, you had to more or less write them yourself. There were magazines with pages and pages of code which you had to painstakingly type in. Of course, if you made one mistake, the whole thing would, crash, and you made lots of mistakes. But still, I remember in those days, I actually wrote a spreadsheet in BASIC. It was only one screen. It was like, 10 cells across and 5 cells down, but it worked. So, as I've said, BASIC didn't stay unified. There were lots and lots of what are called dialects, language, dialect. However, if you knew one dialect, you could pick up another dialect very quickly. So, the dialect that we are going to look at, which is called YAB, started out as something else. Started out as YaBasic, which was created by Mark Oliver Ehm, a German guy, and which started in 1995 when BASIC's glory days were already drawing to an end. Now, YaBasic is still around. You can still download it. It's available for Linux and for Windows. Doesn't run on DOS. And by and large, if your program is only text-based, it doesn't use the special graphics mode, then you can take your YaBasic program and run it in YAB. Not necessarily the other way around. You may need to do a little bit more tinkering to get a text-based YAB program to run in YaBasic. Right, then by 2006, Jan Bungeroth took YaBasic and added hooks to the BOS and later Haiku API. So now you could use it to make programs that used, Haiku windows, buttons, the kind of programs that we all like to see in Haiku. And since then, Jim Saxton and Lel Doran and Lorglass have all made improvements to it. And it's pretty much the same language that it has been for the last 20 years. There have been changes, there have been bug fixes, but the essence of it is still the same. And I'll make another video in the more advanced section saying what makes it so special. Okay, so it is a very easy language to learn because it was designed from 1964, which in computer terms is practically the Stone Age, to be like English. So that gives people whose native language is English a bit of an advantage. But that's true for most computer languages, but especially for BASIC. So if we have something like this, right, so if I run this program, what do you think it'll do? It'll print in this terminal. This program does nothing. Now, if you look here, REM, that is short for reminder. Right, so we call it a comment these days, but it actually is a reminder originally. And print, well, that's an English word. So if this had been designed in France or the Netherlands or Germany, then it might look a bit more like French or Dutch or German, but that's not the way things worked out. There have been attempts, I know, to write computer languages that look more like Chinese. I haven't heard that those have been very successful. Right, so all the keywords that I put in capital letters here, it's not necessary, but just helps us to see what's happening, are derived from English words. And so that makes it a little bit easier to use. Right, let's run this program. There it goes, complete with my capitalization error. So, if you've done a little basic before, you may ask, does it need line numbers? No. You can put them in if you want to, but it doesn't actually use them. YAB uses labels, and a line number is just a special kind of label. So if it won't crash if you try to load an old GW Basic program with line numbers, but it doesn't actually use them. It simply starts from the top, and unless you tell it to jump somewhere else, it works from the top to the bottom. Okay, that's enough of an introduction. I told you I was going to keep these things very short, and I'm already over my time. See you next time.